On today's show, how the Houston Rockets completely outplayed a very good Cleveland Cavaliers team from start to finish. A new identity setting in for this team, pace and space, and why this team is not better without Alperen Sengun. It's all coming up on today's Locked On Rockets.
This is Mission Control, Houston.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. As always, I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, native Houstonian and credentialed media member. I'm also the host of Locked On NBA Mondays. Be sure to follow along on Twitter at JT Gatlin. The show, of course, at Locked On Rockets, free and available wherever you listen to your podcasts, including YouTube. Now, today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNBA. That's LinkedIn.com/LockedOnNBA to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And as always, thank you so much for making Locked On Rockets part of your day every single day, whether it's on your way to work, on your lunch break, in the gym. Thank you for being an everydayer and making the show part of your day every single day. Joining us now is your weekly co-host, NBA draft enthusiast, and diehard Houston Rockets fan, Madison Moore. You can track down on Twitter at MadmanLeaks. Here to talk about a game that was nowhere near as close as the final box score would have you believe. Rockets beating the Cavaliers 117-103. Credit to the Cavaliers B team who kind of closed the gap there at the end of regulation. But Madison, this was the Rockets absolutely dog walked the Cavaliers in this game, outplayed them from the jump, from the tip to the end. Shout out to Rockets legend Clint Capella. Always got to use that terminology when possible here on the show. This was this was a game where coming in, this was maybe the first game where I was a little worried, right? The Cavaliers coming in, third best defense in the NBA. You know, a lot of size in the middle with Jarrett Allen. No Evan Mobley in this game, but just, this was maybe the first game where I was a little worried about the Jabari Smith Jr. at the 5 lineup. And the Rockets came out with just, they out-hustled. They won the 50-50 balls. They just completely outplayed the Cavs from the jump in this one.
Yeah, it was clear that once the Rockets came out and were making their three-point shots, I think in the first quarter they hit a ton of threes. It really broke down what the Cavs wanted to do. And traditionally what teams want to do to the Rockets is pack the paint. So once we begin to make the threes at a high enough clip, it kind of brought everybody a step up. Especially on those screen and rolls and pick and pops, guys start to try to guard those with more intention, which took 2 and 3 steps out of the lane, and it led to an Amen Thompson dunk party in the second quarter.
Yeah.
So and Fred VanVleet was the ultimate orchestrator of that, and it just goes to show, when you're making shots, how tough this Rockets team really can be offensively. And so I think that really opened up the game for us. It's just the simple fact that we came out on fire from 3. I mean, 3 threes from Jalen Green, I believe, in the first quarter. I believe it was 3.
Couple threes from Dillon Brooks too.
That's right. Yeah, Dillon hit some.
The identity of this game was really like pace and space was great from the Rockets in this one. Their spacing was excellent early on. They really did a good job knocking down those shots. And again, that's what really opened things up to where you saw as the game progressed, Jarrett Allen was getting dragged out of the paint repeatedly, whether it was on switches, whether it was on, his pick and roll coverages early on, kind of giving up some of those threes. And then later in the game, I did think it was kind of weird that they didn't start with Jarrett Allen on Amen Thompson. Like we've seen teams do that a lot. We've seen them park their opposing center on, Amen Thompson, and that kind of, mucks up the Rockets offense a little bit. I thought that one was a little weird, and they actually made that switch in the second half, and it didn't quite matter at that point. The Rockets were so firing on all cylinders by that point, so it didn't really matter.
Yeah, they had to make that switch after the second quarter that Amen had. I believe it was the second quarter that he was just having a dunk party in there, and JB Bickerstaff. I think that was a poor decision, dog. Like, you know what I mean? But it's good to see the Rockets are able. It just shows how much they've grown and able to react to what defenses the different looks defenses are showing them, and they really understood how you're going under. We're taking those threes, and if you're staying up, we're going to drop down until we have some body on the backside to dump it down to. But I think the Cavs game was an incredible display of just like making shot making. You know what I mean? Like this team was locked in, and then defensively is where I think they really shined. To me, is shots go in, shots you make or miss shots. That's just the way it goes. We were on fire last night, so to me, it was just like, oh, we're on fire. But defensively, our defensive activity, which allowed us to get in transition and allowed us to build on that lead throughout the game, is really what I think the difference in this game was. I thought our defensive activity was excellent from everyone, and the switching really mucked up things for Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell.
We're going to get back to the offense here in just a moment, because we'll focus in on the defense here momentarily. I said, from the jump, right, this was one of the first games where I thought, man, the Rockets, they're going to be a bit undersized against this Cavaliers team, right? How are they going to handle that? Cavaliers are known to be a very physical team, right? They've embodied that JB Bickerstaff kind of mentality. And I really did think that the Rockets did a fantastic job not getting bullied by this Cavaliers team, right? Jarrett Allen is a guy who, he's not exactly a big that can dominate a game. He's had games where he can have a big numbers, obviously big rebounding games. But I thought they did a great job, defending the times that he tried to go over the top. He only had 7 field goal attempts in this game. Like at no point, there were multiple times, right? The Rockets switching defense left, Jalen Green or Fred VanVleet on Jarrett Allen constantly in this game. And at no point did it feel like the Cavaliers were, effective or good at, trying to get the ball down low to him or taking advantage of these smaller mismatches. And then kind of the extension from that is when those mismatches happen, right? When you get a Fred or a Jalen on a Jarrett Allen, that's clearly a mismatch, even once, not necessarily just to take advantage of that for Jarrett Allen to try and score the ball, but once a shot goes up, you're at a distinct disadvantage trying to rebound the basketball, because then you have a small that has to try and box out a big. And Jarrett Allen is an elite rebounder, right? He's a great inside presence. And I thought the Rockets did a fantastic job in this game of gang rebounding. We've talked about this before, even when Alperen Sengun was healthy. This is a team that needs to gang rebound, right? Because they're undersized at 4 of their 5 positions across the floor. And it really felt like in this game, everybody took that memo to heart, whatever. Jalen was fantastic rebounding this game. I thought Jabari did a good job kind of being really physical on some boards. Thompson, always fantastic on the glass. They really did a fantastic job just securing rebounds. And if it meant, 2 small guys are boxing out Jarrett Allen, cool. So, a wing swings in and gets the board or whatever. I thought that was a really key element here to be able to put the Cavs away in this one.
Yeah, I mean, that's been the Rockets. That's been an emphasis since I feel like the first couple weeks of the season, when Ime kind of understood.
When Ime called him out when he talked about doing the old school rebounding drills.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it also goes to show the toughness of this team and how Ime has really begun to build this culture of toughness. And we've seen some inconsistencies of it throughout the season, but now it's starting to be more consistent for our young players. Everybody is more consistent and buying in, and it's becoming their identity. I mean, I just think it's a part of their tough, hard-nosed brand of basketball, and it translates on the rebounds as well as the defense.
And just, and elsewhere for the defense, they really did a fantastic job, closing out hard, forcing Cavs into tough shots. It really felt like, again, even though the pace of this game was absolutely insane, but then you look up and down and the Cavs, Donovan Mitchell had 13 attempts, Garland also only 13 attempts. They really, I felt like, forced other guys other than their 2 big guns to take their shots, right? So much of the Cavs offense tries to flow through Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland, and then it's those guys drive and kick, perimeter-oriented offense, trying to get the ball out to their shooters. And it really felt like they kind of flummoxed the Cavs, defensively or offensively, I should say, to where, from the point of attack, from Jalen, from Amin, from Fred, from Dillon Brooks, they all did a really great job. And the Cavs they just weren't ready for this game, man.
Yeah. So one of the things about having good wing defenders the way we have, and I talk about Jalen's improvement on defense, not just because of his improvement, because he's largely been the weakest defender on our defense. And now that he's becoming a plus defender, we're literally watching him transition into a plus defender, not making mistakes on rotations, being in the right place at the right time, and really getting after it one-on-one defense. He had some incredible plays where guys used to knock him off his spot and just go through his chest and score. We've seen Okoro try and do it and he get the block. And you know what I mean? He's starting to play with this competitive nature on that end, and you can tell he's starting to like it, right? We even see him. He's
starting to thrive because of the defense.
Yes, exactly. And just also a one-on-one play with I think he stripped Garland as well. It's just his hands are getting better, and when you couple that with these elite defenders that we have across our starting lineup, we have a lot of really, really good defenders now that Jalen is starting to put in plus defensive efforts. This defensive team is growing in a way that, is really sustainable. And I just want to commend our Rockets on the activity of their hands. Their hands make it so tough for opposing teams to get into rhythm, whether it be shot creation, but you just watch Jabari, Fred VanVleet, how they swipe on when guys dribble over, so they don't get a clean dribble over, right? Amon does it every time. Every time somebody tries to right-left crossover, there's a hand there. They're so active in their hands, and everyone on the team is that way, and it's so disruptive, especially with the increase in physicality that the league is allowing now.
The increased physicality absolutely bodes well for the Rockets, because when you're a bit of an undersized team, you can sometimes get away with a little bit more physicality. Sometimes the refs will let you get away with a little bit more, and that helps the Rockets because they're not a team that's big and has a lot of length and size to where they can kind of play, you would say, a bit more like safe on the defensive end, right, and just rely on their length to stop guys right directly at the rim or closing out hard. So they've got to find creative ways to be disruptive defensively. They have to be proactive with their defense and kind of try and force the issue, and it very much felt like that was the case in this game. Coming up, we're going to switch gears and get back to some of the offensive stuff in this game, how well the starters played together, a plus 17 in their minutes on the floor in this one. Some fun stats about the starting lineup. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. Because LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all of that while making the process easy and intuitive. Because look, LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or the resources for hiring right now. LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process even easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process easier and quicker. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. And continuing on here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, Madison, kind of switching gears here back to the offensive side of things in this game. It felt like a really well-balanced scoring approach, kind of spread across all the starters. And I found this stat that I thought was pretty interesting, is that the Rockets had a 3-point assist rate of 85% in this game, meaning that they assisted on damn near all of their threes in this one. It really didn't feel like a lot of, they had a very small handful of, some isolation threes here and there, right? Fred had, a couple of them. Jalen had a couple of the makes, that is, not necessarily the ones that included misses, but of their made 3-pointers, a majority of them, well over 80%, came from assists. And it really felt like the Rockets did a good job. And this kind of goes back to us talking about the pace and space, where they didn't want to have to attack this Cavaliers defense when they were set up in the half court. If you look at the stats, the Rockets only recorded 21 fast break points in this game, but fast break points in the way that it's quantified on NBA statistics is always really weird. It felt like that number should have been way bigger than that, because the Rockets constantly, whether it was off of misses, off of makes, they were taking the ball out of the net and just running and going and trying to find any and all ways to attack this Cavaliers defense in transition before they got themselves set up.
Yeah, I thought the Rockets did. I mean, that is a key to how they are getting easy offense, and is really key to this new lineup that we'll talk about in the third segment. But this ability of this balanced offensive approach, it is working because the Rockets are sharing the ball, right? And so because the Rockets are sharing the ball so well, we have a more balanced approach, and guys are picking up for one another's when other guys, they're allowing guys when they're hot to continue to shoot. And I thought today, yes, in the Cavs game, the Rockets really had about 2 or 3 starters or players who carried quarters for them throughout this game. And it really just, it made for a more cohesive game and no let up of the offense. And so the first quarter was more Jalen Green and Dillon Brooks. In the second quarter was more Thompson, Jabari Smith, and Fred VanVleet with the passes. But then the third quarter,
give Jae'Sean Tate some credit. Put some respect on his name too. He had 8 points in 3 minutes off the bench. He was not. This was one. No, and shout out to Cavaliers. Poor Sam Merrill, man. Like top of the second quarter, he was just getting bullied by that lineup at the top of the second quarter because it didn't matter whose turn it was to attack on offense, whether it was Tate, whether it was Jabari, whatever. They were hunting Sam Merrill defensively, and they were trying to put him in the blender or put him on the low block and just let those guys go to work. It was funny to watch.
Yeah, man. And it's so important, though, because really we wonder where we're going to get offense from that second unit at the top of the second. And Jae'Sean Tate, like, we kind of forget, like, Jae'Sean Tate, if he get the right mismatch, I mean, it's barbecue chicken in there, you know what I mean? And his activity and defensively, we really needed his burst off the bench. And it just reminded us, like, that is a real NBA player, bro. Like, that's real depth on this team. And it was really good to see him. And he even hit a 3. So, shout out to Jae'Sean. But yeah, and as well as Jabari, I thought Jabari had an excellent quarter as well as Amon had all those finishes, and with the 10 assists before that with Fred.
Speaking of those finishes for a minute, that was, oh my God, the one where he had the breakaway and he like so gently dunked the ball, right? And Cam and Jeff were like pissed at him after that because they were wanting to show. They got up off the bench. They were ready to like cheer, and he didn't give them anything to cheer for. And they were like barking at him on his way back down. And the camera kind of panned back to him in. And he kind of like, it looked like he kind of nodded at them like, all right, I'll give you something. And a couple possessions later, he ran that pick and roll with Fred VanVleet, set the screen, rolled to the rim, and then he caught the little pocket pass, and he had like that like kind of double clutch in the air and then dunked it home. And then the Rockets bench exploded off that one. That was a great little, like, he redeemed himself in that moment.
Yeah, man. Come on, Amon. You're a rook, dog. If it's any time to be showing out with your athleticism, it's now, dog. We want to see the tricks when you're out on the break. But yeah, but just getting back to the offense, the way the team picked each other up, and I thought Jalen and Fred really helped at the top of the third. I thought Fred made some really underrated, excellent buckets in that third that really kept our offense alive. I mean, those are the thirds we've sometimes struggled with leads in the third, and I thought Fred was the reason we were able to sustain and actually build on that lead.
Fred, he had that thing where, he did the thing where he was just facilitating in the first half, right? Getting guys set up, getting guys in their spots. He made sure everybody else was rolling. And then in that third, he was like, all right, Fred's a player that he knows he can get his offense kind of whenever he wants. Now, that's dependent on if his shot is falling, obviously. But when a player like that decides, okay, cool, like I've gotten everybody else involved, now I'm going to hunt my shot a little bit. And that's exactly what we saw from Fred in that third quarter. And to your point, about having each player kind of step up and, having one or two guys, 3 guys, whatever, step up in each quarter, there was never really any offensive like letdown until actually it kind of felt like that fourth quarter, which is less so about like not having a guy step up in the fourth quarter and more so just the Rockets were leading by as many as like 27. And like once the Cavs get, like, I think like Donovan Mitchell hit a 3 and Garland hit a 3, early in that fourth quarter. They maybe like pushed the lead back down to like, I don't know, 18 or something. I think is as close as they got it, maybe 16 at one point with like their actual starters in the game before they eventually threw in the bench unit. But one thing that I did like, and this kind of goes back to what happened at the top of the second quarter, and hopefully this is a theme that we see continue moving forward, is it's always been kind of a question mark with that second unit, right? How we're going to generate offense, how things are going to get done. And it felt like they did a really good job in this game of identifying their mismatches. They did it really well in that second quarter. They were picking on Sam Merrill. They were picking on Niang at certain points in the game. And then same thing, top of the fourth quarter. They had multiple possessions, like 2-3 possessions in a row where they got the ball to Jabari, where he had a smaller defender on him, where he was able to, elevate, just get over the top, that kind of thing. Side note for Jabari, he had a lot of attempted finishes in this game around the rim that did not end well for him. That's just, it's got to be an area of improvement for him. If you're 6'11", 7 feet tall, you got to be able to finish through some contact at the rim. You got to be able to, power through, absorb some contact. And that's going to elevate his game to another level, right? Because we know that he can, kind of get his wherever he wants in the mid range. That's his sweet spot. We know that once he gets going a little bit, the three ball, is there and can be reliable for him. Sometimes it's hard to start off cold and just start drilling threes right out of the gate. But it's that being able to finish in and around the rim is what's going to really take his offensive game to the next level.
Yeah, Jabari, come on, dog. Come on, big dog. You 6'11". I know you need a little bit more muscle, but yeah, you got to get in the gym, bro, and get stronger in the paint so you can knock guys off. All you got to do is hit them in their chest with that shoulder and finish through that contact. I know, you're not as strong as you need to be right now, and that's fine because you're a young player, but come on, dog. We need you finishing in there. You know what I mean? But once Jabari adds that size, I do think Jabari is a decent finisher. It's like, I think he's going to be okay. But right now it is a struggle. And that's another area that he should focus on. But I thought he was excellent from three tonight. You know what I mean? So, yeah. So he picked us up in that way. So, and being such a good threat from three really got Amon all those dunks. So I want to give him his praise on that for knocking shots down and how that causes teams to defend you differently.
Absolutely, because they couldn't pack the paint, right? So it left, and so Amin was able to kind of roam that baseline, be in the dunker spot and get all those free, free kind of dives towards the rim, and it was beautiful to see the dunkathon, whatever, that he was the dunkster there in that second quarter. Look, this game was over by the fourth quarter for all intents and purposes. It was a really impressive win by, again, a very shorthanded Rockets team, missing Alperen Sengun, missing Cam Whitmore. Obviously, they've been missing Tari for basically the entire season. Yes, the Cavs didn't have Evan Mobley, but this is a very, very good Cavaliers team, top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference. So I think a very impressive win, and the Rockets are now 7-1 in the month of March. And the play-in hopes, even though we thought maybe they were gone, they're still kind of there potentially. Wow. So the Rockets might be sneaking their way into the play-in discussion. But last thing we want to talk about coming up here in a moment on today's show, how the identity of this Rockets team has shifted since the All-Star break. We're going to get there in just one moment. First, today's episode is brought to you by Stitch Fix. With Stitch Fix, you get a stylist who understands your style, size, and budget. They do all the shopping for you. It's the easiest way to upgrade your wardrobe this season. You can upgrade it with a stylist that helps you find new on-trend favorites that will work for you. All you have to do is give your stylist your size, style, and budget preferences, order boxes that you want and how you want, no subscription required, and they send you 5 just for you pieces, plus outfit recommendations and pro styling advice. You keep what works and you send back the rest. If you don't love something, just send it back. Shipping, returns, and exchanges are always free with Stitch Fix. Style that makes you feel as good as you look. Get started today at stitchfix.com/lockedon. That's stitchfix.com/lockedon. stitchfix.com/lockedon. And final segment here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast, home for everything Houston Rockets basketball. All right, Madison, there is a notion now running around in the 3 games that this team has now played. And Madison's, if you're watching on YouTube, great. If you're listening, you can't see Madison chuckling because he already knows what we're having to debunk. We're gonna have to dispel the notion right here in this segment. This team is not better without Alperen Sengun. That has been a very wild narrative that has taken place in the very short, mind you, 3-game sample size that we have without Alperen Sengun against,
the worst teams.
Yeah, very bad teams. Like, that's the thing. It's like, it's not, these are not, we had a Spurs game, we had a Wizards game, and yes, the Cavs are a good team, but they didn't even have, come on. So we just got to address that right from the jump. But and we're not even going to spend a lot of time discussing it because it's not even an argument to be had. It's dumb.
I'm sorry. It's dumb. You're dumb. If you think that, I don't respect your basketball mind at all. I know that may not mean anything to anybody, but I just don't. So it's dumb, bro.
No,
so
it is. It's silly to try and draw that kind of a sweeping conclusion after a tiny 3-game sample size for a guy who has been your best player all season long. Now, one thing that I do think warrants, discussion is how this team's identity has shifted since the All-Star break, but especially in this kind of 3-game sample size that we do have, where yes, they have adopted a different identity kind of without Alperen Sengun on the floor, but I don't think it's because they don't have Alpi out there. I think the team was actually in the process of adjusting to this new identity. We saw them playing with more pace, trying to get out and run more, even with Sengun in the lineup before he went down due to injury. And it really feels like this team is now settling into this new identity where they're able to still maintain and remain an elite defensive team, but they're also now finding easier opportunities to get out and transition and really highlighting the strengths of a lot of their athletes on this roster. Guys like Jalen, guys like Amin, not in this game specifically because he's been out for a couple games now due to injury, but guys like Cam Whitmore, right, who can really get out and be a terror in transition. These weren't things that we saw happening earlier in the season because, again, Ime was trying to, strip it all down to the nuts and bolts, right? Get them fundamentally sound, get them to clean up the mistakes that had them, last place, one of the worst defensive teams in the association for a couple of years. And once those fundamental defensive principles were in place, then he started giving them the freedom, trying to push the pace, right? Trying to really say, all right, now we've got to get out and run. Now we've got to try and capitalize on these opportunities where our young guys can get out and really get some easy buckets.
Yeah, I think that is key. And we've already been making that shift, but the shift has become, and we've been getting better at getting out in transition. And it's largely due to the improvement of our young players as defenders. That like we talked about, their activity, it allows for us to get turnovers and play quicker, right? And so because Alperen Sengun went out of the lineup, that was that was going to clearly hurt our offense. It's going to clearly hurt our offense. And we've seen it in that Spurs game when it just, a lot of the offense devolved into one-on-one craziness, right? Which I think the Rockets really benefited from playing those two bad teams early so they could see how their team looked like and work on some things that they needed to get the offense together. But to get back to it defensively, we replaced Alperen Sengun, who's been a very good, I think, a serviceable defender this year, but we replaced him with an absolute elite defender in Amin Thompson. Absolutely elite defender. And what that does for your pace, when you have guys who switch, now we do the switching lineup and we make offenses devolve into one-on-one basketball when you can switch everything. And so it just gives us a different look. And because of our activity and growth over this time, it's leading to more turnovers and leading us to get out in more transition and get easy buckets. And, I am very impressed in the growth of our young players in sharing the ball since that first Spurs game. I thought they really needed an anchor and a screener, but you see Amin is already getting better at it. We see more of Jabari in the pick and roll. The team is trying to find itself offensively in those ways as well. And I think it'll be good for the development of all of our players as now the playmaking onus is now more spread out. Everybody has to make more plays. And like we saw, Fred VanVleet has always been the orchestrator, but I would wonder who would hit Amin in those backdoor situations. And last night, or with the Cavs game, it was Fred VanVleet. It's good to see that we can still make those same plays, but now I want to see the other guys start to make those plays too. And so there's really a development component of making everybody better in this while Alperen Sengun is out. And that's just going to help our other guys catch up to the level that Alperen Sengun is at right now.
Absolutely. And look, it's kind of by necessity, right? So Alp goes down and other guys are going to have to step up. You're going to have to find, different ways to generate offense. You can't rely on a guaranteed, double team or triple team to Alperen Sengun to generate wide open looks. And this kind of goes back to what we talked about, how the Rockets were doing a good job, at points in this game, identifying mismatches, attacking weak points within the Cavaliers defense. And I do think that when you have sufficient 5-out spacing, what that does is there's always going to be a weak defender somewhere on the floor. So whether that weak defender is guarding Jabari, whether that weak defender is guarding Dillon Brooks, whether that weak defender gets switched on to a Fred VanVleet, that becomes kind of the weak point that you're trying to attack. And then I thought the Rockets did a really great job with their drive and kick game, just finding those seams, finding those cracks in the Cavaliers defense, even in the half court, to where they could attack and then kick out to an open shooter, right? And whether that open shooter would fire a three or then that person was able to attack off the catch and keep the Cavaliers defense kind of scrambling. Those are how they generated those opportunities, right? So it's a combination of the defense is very different now because now you have a true 1 through 5 that is switchable across the board. And you know, because primarily when Sengun was playing and when they play when they play Jock Landale, they don't involve their 5s in switches, right? They switch 1 through 4 when those guys are on the floor. So the defensive coverage becomes entirely different. And when you're switching everything 1 through 5, it becomes a lot more chaotic for the other team offensively to try and generate anything, right? It flattens out an offense. And because of the things that we talked about earlier, the Rockets' quick hands, their activity in passing lanes being disruptive, it really has leaned into, I think, a different kind of defensive identity for this team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's what I say. The Rockets have been good defensively all year, but it allows us to do things a little bit differently. And it's going to be a shock to teams. You know what I mean? It's going to be a shock. They don't have a lot of film on how the Rockets play like this. And so as this increase in physicality has come after the All-Star break, the refs aren't calling fouls like they used to. It's really helped the Rockets in that sense as well, where we can be physical, and that's Ime Udoka. He's been preaching that. And so now we don't get those knick-knack fouls or foul-baiting fouls that young players fall for all the time. Now they can just play freely and tough, right? So it just makes for aesthetically a better game. The process goes quicker, but it really benefits the Rockets. And guess what? On offense, it doesn't hurt us because we didn't get no foul calls anyway. You know what I mean? It don't hurt us at all on offense because these Rockets have been playing like this. They don't have foul baiters on their team. And Alperen Sengun stopped doing that, right? He used to be this super crafty foul baiter, but he doesn't do that anymore because that's not Ime Udoka's identity. He don't play like that. And Jalen Green actually gets fouled all the time, but he never gets the call. So he's used to it now. He knows that he has to play through that stuff. His mentality is better. We do got to get Jabari rounded back in. He's struggling with being fouled and not getting those calls around the rim. Hey, that's what it is now. You know what I mean? Like, and the sooner you get that mentality, it doesn't. I remember in the Stephen Silas era how not getting calls could just debilitate this team. Yep. It really could debilitate this team. These guys have a different mindset now. They're way tougher than this. And I think that new increased physicality is also pouring into what the Rockets are doing right now. Yeah,
Jalen had some, at least 2 different really tough finishes kind of through contact. And talking about, I mentioned the rebounding earlier in this game too. He had like the and we're going to talk about Jalen, the post All-Star break Jalen Green, this phenomenon that we've seen for the last couple seasons. And it's taking place yet again this year, where post All-Star break Jalen Green is a different beast. But he had that one rebound. He went in traffic, got the offensive board, put it back up, around like 3 Cavaliers players, and then gave him like the little shoulder flex on him too.
Love it.
It's a mentality that this whole team has embraced, and it's kind of that underdog mentality, right? They've got it, and oftentimes teams start to reflect the mentality of their head coach. The Rockets have that mentality from Ime Udoka, and I think we're seeing kind of a different version of this team now, again, by necessity, without Alperen Sengun out there, the way that they're having to change things stylistically, offensively, defensively. But I think that we're going to have to, this is going to warrant a discussion, for a future episode, but Ime Udoka has to absolutely be in the coach of the year discussion. I think if this Rockets team can make, a late push here and snag a play-in spot, I think he's got to at least be a finalist for coach of the year for the absolute massive turnaround that the Rockets have already experienced. They have now broken their Vegas over-under win totals for the season. I think they were 31.5 games coming into the year. They've broken that, now winning 32 games on the season. They're only a handful of games under 500, and still got a little ways to go this year and some hopes for the play-in tournament. But Madison, on that note, you know the drill. Let me know where to track you down at.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at MadmanLeaks, man. Come talk Rockets ball with me.
That's going to do it for another edition of Locked On Rockets. As always, thank you so much for checking out the show. If you haven't done so yet, please consider subscribing wherever you listen to your podcasts, or on YouTube. Just search Locked On Rockets. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. But as always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we look forward to having you back right here at Locked On Rockets, your daily podcast home for everything Houston Rockets basketball.